Before we get into the video, I want to make a couple of points. I'm not approaching this video politically or with hate, but rather as something that has consequences for all of us. I do not run a political channel. I run a gig work channel, so please do be mindful of that in the comments. About 6 months ago, I was doing a live show with Kim's Side Money Plans, and in the course of that conversation, it came out that her market was being flooded with, we'll call them new drivers. Kim noticed a trend with these new drivers. Many of them had multiple phones and very few of them spoke English. Admittedly, when I first started hearing about this, I wrongfully assumed that it was a very small problem and only affecting a few places around the country. I was so wrong, in fact, that this is one of the most common things that I hear from drivers now. Turns out, just because I don't see it in my market doesn't mean that it's not actually a thing. Over the last few weeks, I've reached out to several people who are affected by this problem, listened to their stories, and learned how bad this really is. The common theme I'm hearing is order volume is substantially down. Meanwhile, these new drivers are using 2, 3, and sometimes even 4 phones each. Now, it's not necessarily nefarious for a driver to have 2 phones. For example, if you dabble in both rideshare and delivery, I could understand having the rideshare apps on one phone and the delivery apps on another. But if you're running DoorDash or Spark on more than one phone, that means that at least one of those accounts doesn't belong to you. Let's go down the rabbit hole. Whether it's socially acceptable to say it or not, I'm gonna say it. The people who are doing this are generally immigrants working in teams. Now, I get the argument that they're just trying to make an income for themselves, but this video isn't for them. This video is for the legitimate drivers who took the necessary steps to be on these apps. After all, this problem is costing legitimate drivers enormous amounts of money and lost revenue. I want to use Spark as an example. When these folks work in teams, they have dedicated shoppers whose sole purpose is to shop the orders. And then they have drivers whose sole purpose is to deliver the orders that they didn't just shop for. Who's more likely to get an order? A team of people working together who have 3 phones each who accept everything? Or you with 1 phone? Do you see the problem? Some of these groups have gone as far as using cell phone signal jammers to ensure that you don't get the order, while everybody else is sitting there trying to figure out what's wrong with their phones. They're inside shopping the order that never had a chance to hit your phone to begin with. Now, for those of you who assume that the driver and the shopper split the money, it's not always the case. This frequently works like organized crime, where there's a boss dictating the rules, renting out the accounts, and collecting most of the money. So they're probably not getting a good deal either. I've had so many of you tell me that you've been on the wait list for Spark for over 6 months, so it has got to be maddening to see one driver with 4 accounts. All right, I need to slow myself down a little bit before I get too worked up. How did this problem become a thing to begin with? Well, it can happen a few ways. The first way is that a legitimate driver or former driver agrees to rent out their account for a week or a month at a time and collect some money for it. Never do that. Another common way that it happens is their account gets hacked. A few years back, my Postmates account got hacked and my banking information was changed. Fortunately, I caught it in time to stop them from getting a dime of my money. The final way that accounts are obtained, and the one I want to focus on in this video, is straight up identity theft. Without getting too technical, there's a way to access the internet that is almost completely untraceable, and criminals know this, and they exploit it. If your information has ever been compromised in a data breach, there's a pretty good chance your full name, address, phone number, date of birth, and social security number are available for purchase on the internet right now. Criminals will then purchase lists of identities off the internet and proceed to create fake IDs for those people. While they probably aren't good enough in most cases to get you through a border, they're good enough to snap a picture of an ID and upload it for verification to apps like Uber or Spark. To recap where we're at, we're not just talking about people who are taking work from us. We're talking about straight up identity theft, and I wish it could stop there, but unfortunately, it doesn't. You know what identity thieves don't do? They don't pay tax on the money. When somebody's information is purchased off the internet and a gig app is created, they're going to get tax forms for the money that they didn't make. As if it wasn't bad enough that their identity was stolen, they now have to pay tax on the money that they didn't earn. In fact, this problem is so bad that Uber has an entire section on their website for people who receive tax forms when they never drove for the app. Uber's website goes so far as to ask for a picture of your ID, a picture of you holding your ID, as well as a complaint filed with the federal government about identity theft. Sounds like a pretty big headache. I'm of the opinion that people who are victims of identity theft shouldn't have to prove that they didn't drive for these apps. The app should have to prove that they did. In all seriousness, though, how do you prove that those aren't your earnings? It's not like you can just call up the IRS and be like, "Hi, IRS, I didn't make this money, so please wipe it out." And they're just going to do it. I'd like to move on to something that we have to do all the time, but they don't. Background checks. Whenever we sign up for a new app, we have to go through a background check, as we rightfully should. On top of that, several apps will background check us about once a year to make sure we should still be allowed to show up at random people's houses. Now, I'm not suggesting that the people using these accounts are violent or that they're going to steal from our customers, but personally, I don't want anybody showing up at my front door who hasn't been background checked. Let me know in the comments if you agree with me. Unfortunately, these apps turn a blind eye to it because they get orders delivered cheaper. What's it going to take? Does somebody have to get assaulted or worse before these apps stop valuing money over lives? I truly believe that this is a bad situation for all parties involved. But I want to turn it to our customers for a moment. Does it instill confidence in our customer when the app shows that Renee is supposed to show up, but then Randy shows up instead? Of course not. In fact, when you get done watching this video, you should search YouTube for Spark Scammer Confronted. Customers are fed up with it too. I want to run you through a completely hypothetical scenario. Let's say I pulled up to the customer's house, got their order delivered, but decided to steal their garden gnome. Let's be honest. It wouldn't be hard to track me down. These apps have teams of people that work directly with police departments, so a knock on the door would probably come sooner rather than later, and I would face repercussions. As I should. But it was a nice garden gnome. But what happens when the app says it's Sarah delivering your order, and some random dude shows up and decides to lift a couple of Amazon packages off your porch? Who are the police going to track down? They're going to track down Sarah, who may not even know she has an Uber or Spark account. Now, I'm not saying that this scenario would ever happen, but if it did, they would be sent to the wrong person, not the one who actually committed the crime. No matter how you slice it, this is a bad situation all around. Right now, the only ones coming out on top are the apps who are getting orders delivered cheaper and the people who are actually controlling and renting out these accounts. This is taking immeasurable amounts of money from legitimate drivers, and it's going to dissuade customers from ordering. Since these apps seem to have little interest in curbing this problem, perhaps we drivers could give them a little motivation. There's several reputable media outlets out there who cover gig work. Reach out to them. Tell them your story. If you would like to share your experience with the media, do a quick Google search for a topic just like this. When you find an article covering it, scroll all the way to the bottom, and chances are pretty good that the reporter's name and email address will be down there. Hit them up. Me talking about a problem like this on my small channel is likely not going to do much to make a dent. But you sharing your stories with the media in a very public way, embarrassing the hell out of them on national news, just might do the trick. Well, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. Be sure to let me know in the comments section what you're seeing in your markets. Also, if you haven't done so yet, please do consider pressing the like button and subscribing to my channel. My name is Zach. Take care.